Good evening, Jilan Pon, blessings. Last night of the old year, what better way to spend it than practicing Dhamma, chanting, meditating, listening to Dhamma. Some of you, or many of you, are new tonight, but many have also been here on retreat. So this is the last day of our retreat also, and we still have quite a few questions which we've been trying to answer. If this pot contained money, it would be rich. It just keeps growing. So I wish you to have a pot like this at home, just full of money for your New Year present. First question. Dear Ajahn, thank you for teaching and guiding us in this retreat. Also thank you to She and the Sangha and lay practitioners for supporting us. I shared with you that my niece Isla Bell was allegedly murdered. She was 19. Creative, kind to humans and animals, passionate about women's rights and climate justice. She had dreams of being a marine biologist. One man is being charged with her murder and another man is being charged with concealing her body. Would it be okay if we spent a few moments to bring her to mind, share the merits of our practice with her and send her metta? Yes, it would be all right. Also, I welcome any advice for how to support others in her family who are experiencing grief, rage, and complex trauma. So, the name was Isla Bell. Isla, I think that's a Scottish name. So, yes, because this is Q&A time, maybe we'll wait for the metta, but later on tonight we'll be chanting paritas, sharing merits, asking forgiveness just before midnight tonight. Perhaps that's a good time to really think of her, and we dedicate our chanting and meditation to her. At the moment, maybe we just talk a little bit about dealing with the grief of losing a loved one. So, in Buddhism, the whole teachings are pervaded by this theme of anicca, impermanence. Life is impermanent. We just chanted it. My life is uncertain, impermanent. My death is certain. So obviously when someone is murdered or dies in an accident, it's a very sudden, unpredictable death, and often much younger than you would expect. So that's perhaps more shocking, harder to cope with. Most people, when they get to the end of their life, if they reach the end, an old age, then it sort of becomes more and more expected, because if at the very least your friends start dying before you do, at least mine do. That's how monks greet each other in Thailand. They say, "Oh, you didn't die yet," or "Who's left?" Because as monks, Ajahn Chah Sangha, where there's hundreds and hundreds of monks now all over the world, and many of them are old. And so every year, people I've known all my monk life have died. People who have come here, taught here over the years. If any of you have been coming for many years, like there was Luang Sawang, he died, passed away. Luang Wanajit, he passed away last year. There's been a few others, more than I can remember. And it will keep on happening in the sense that we all get old and die. So death is the most normal thing in life, as normal as birth. They come together. But it is particularly shocking if someone is killed, murdered, or if there's an accident or something like that, then it's perhaps harder to cope with. One thing the Buddha encouraged us to do is to remind ourselves every day that life is uncertain, separation from the people I love is going to happen. And that does help to prepare you for what may arise, because life is uncertain. You don't know what will happen tomorrow. And it helps you. When it does happen, then you have to be very patient with the emotions that come up, especially someone who's been taken away, we might say unjustly. To be murdered is a terrible thing and such a waste. We're going to die anyway, so humans don't need to kill each other, but because we get caught into our delusions and kilesa, sometimes people do kill each other. So we have to deal with that grief, sense of loss. Over the years, a few of my friends from the lay life have been murdered. Monks have died, but not usually through murder. And what happens when you lose someone unexpectedly, it's like something's ripped out of your heart, isn't it? You sort of ripped out, a bit of you is ripped out. That's because you have this love and attachment for the person who's now gone. So that already is painful. You've got to deal with that, be very patient. Then also, if you feel there's someone to blame for this, so in the case of murder, there's obviously someone who's done that deed. It's very difficult not to feel angry with that person, because they've caused you pain as well as taking your loved one away. So it's a natural reaction, or you might say a not unexpected reaction, to feel anger, even rage, revenge, wanting to get back. But this is where you have to bring the practice in. Being angry and staying with angry thoughts doesn't help you, doesn't help your loved one who's passed away. It won't improve the situation. It'll actually make it worse. So what we have to do is be very patient and work through this anger as it comes up. The sense of injustice, it's not fair, shouldn't have happened. Then the seeking of wanting to punish or hurt the person who did it. But the Buddha encouraged us to cultivate the 4 Brahma Vihara Dhammas. So goodwill, compassion, karuna, mudita, sympathetic joy, and then upekkha, equanimity, based on an understanding of karma, that all beings have their karma. We both make karma and we receive the fruits of our karma. And things happen. And some things are not to our liking and not what we want, but they happen all the same, beyond our control. So upekkha is keeping that balance when facing either your own suffering that you didn't expect or didn't want, or the suffering of your loved ones as well. Because that's the best way to face it. The opposite of upekkha is confusion, anguish, all the negative states of mind, anxiety, stress, fear, which don't help us and don't help anyone else. They may arise because of our attachment, but we have to learn to be patient with them and start letting them go, which will take time. Grief takes time to work through, but we have to keep going, don't we? We have to keep practicing with it, because we have to get our mind back to a place of normality, even towards a terrible thing like a murder of a young person. Because being abnormal, being caught up in rage, fear, anguish, doesn't help us, doesn't help anyone else. It's just more suffering. So that's what we're having to work with. And it may take years working to develop a more skillful attitude to what's happened. But you have to see, the more you can bring up the wholesome, good Dhamma in your heart, let go of your anger, bring up the recollection of the good of the person who died. She's done a lot of good things, lived a good life, have you mentioned, she's creative and kind person. That's what you have to focus on, the good of that person and their life. And wish them well for where they're going next, their next life. So if you're caught up in anguish and you're holding on to your anger and want revenge and all that, well, your merit is minimal or non-existent at that time because anger has taken over. What you want to do is to develop more meritorious, more wholesome states of mind and then dedicate them to the one who's died. We just chanted that, sharing merits. Because that's like the spiritual support as they go into their next life. The goodness of our actions dedicated to them, remembering them, thinking of them, doing good things in their name, small or big. So you can meditate for someone who died, you can chant for them, you can do an act of charity for the person who died and dedicate it to them, which we do. We have memorials and we do funding and we build things and we plant trees and we do all kinds of things in the name of the one who's died, rather than sitting there just enveloped with anger, which is a very destructive quality. So we have to teach ourselves to let go of the anger and focus on doing more good for the person who's died and for us as well, and for the living. As far as the ones who did the terrible deed, well, you might never see them again, might never meet them again, but when you think of them, of course, there'll probably be anger again. But you have to see this anger is not going to improve them or change them, and it's not going to improve you either. People don't improve through anger, they improve through all the good qualities such as mindfulness, wisdom, understanding, compassion. So if you want these terrible people who've done the terrible deed to stop doing things like that, the change has to come from goodwill, getting them, to learn education. Then, if they're caught and they're locked up, okay, but then you want them to be educated and change for the better, to regret and see where they went wrong. Simply being angry and seeking revenge isn't going to affect that. It's not going to get that done. So of course it's a hard thing not to seek revenge on someone who's taken your loved one away. But it's possible, with work, with effort. When I was growing up, one thing that was going on was I'm from England, and there was the Irish troubles, Catholics and Protestants fighting, killing each other, and then they often would do things in England, shoot people or put bombs. There was an army officer living down the road from me, and they put a bomb under his car and killed him, just one Sunday morning. And a few other bombs. My school was evacuated once from a bomb scare. And I remember on one occasion, I think it was in Manchester, where Ajahn Karuniko comes from, there was one apartment block was bombed and the building collapsed and a number of people were killed. And there was a little girl, it's only like 5, 6 years old, under the rubble, still alive, and they're trying to dig her out and they're racing against time, because she was caught under the rubble, and they made a little hole so they knew she was there, they could hear her, and they tried to get breathing apparatus to her and water, but it's taken many hours to dig her out because there was a danger of the thing collapsing on her, and she was dying, she was injured, and her dad was there, and mum and dad are there trying to give their little daughter encouragement, having been bombed, injured, dying, but they can't get her out. And she was there. So I can't remember whether she managed to put her hand through the hole, but her face was there. And she's talking to her dad, and just saying, "I love you, Daddy." And she kept saying that and then she died. It's very tragic, and a lot of this was on film, the news. And then afterwards they interviewed the dad. They said, "Oh, these terrorists have bombed your family and your daughter's died. How do you feel? Do you want to get revenge? Do you want to punish them?" He said, "I can't think like that because my daughter's last words over and over again were, 'I love you.' So all I can think of is love. So even though they've done a terrible thing, I can't hate them. I want to stay with the love. It's better." So he understood, his little daughter kind of taught him a lesson. It's sort of a terrible thing, the whole country is crying, but at the same time it's quite a good lesson in letting go of anger. So that's what we're going to do, but it's not easy, we're going to work towards it. New question. Thank you so much for your teaching, Tenajan. Could you please explain what are sanya, vipallasa, and papancha? What to do with them and how to recognize them? Are they always there when there is no awareness? I guess you could say yes. When we're not aware, we're deluded, aren't we? In one way or another. Sanya vipallasa, though, usually refers to delusions of insight during meditation. But it's, there's a broader way of defining it as well. We see things, generally speaking, that are impermanent as permanent. The number one is ourselves. We just have this sense that I'm going to go on forever, and we're always saying, "I'm going to go on forever," but we're not. We're impermanent. We die. We get old. We die. This body is impermanent. The mind is constantly changing, and then the world around us is impermanent, and yet we're always looking for permanence and having that perception. So there's a kind of general delusion we have. We have a delusion of self, don't we? We say, "This is mine, my house, my car, my parents, my children, my money, my this, my that. This is mine." But is it? All these things we take ownership of, really we don't own. That's just a superficial, we say a designation, a convention. We say it's mine, my car. But the car doesn't know that. A car is just metal and rubber and oil and fuel. A car doesn't know that it's owned by anyone. It's just elements. The sense of ownership is in our mind. And then other people agree, usually you sign a contract or whatever, you buy it and everyone agrees that it's now your car. But the car doesn't know that. The car doesn't know it's a car. It's just a collection of elements. But we say it's my car, and if anyone steals it or touches it or crashes it, we get very upset because of this delusion. So sanya vipallasa is delusion of perceptions, and these are very common ones. But in meditation, it refers particularly to some of the defilements of insight. So like, you can be very mindful and make your mind very calm, and maybe your mind becomes very bright, radiant, peaceful. But then we go and grasp hold of that as that's me, I am this radiant light, say. And we walk around very happy, now I've got this radiant light, this is me, this is who I am. We identify with the radiance or the peace of the meditation with a sense of self. So in a way, we're back to square one, because you're meditating to actually see through the delusion of self. But through a defilement of insight, we actually grasp hold of the bright light, or the feeling of peace, or the piti, the rapture, as self, mine. It's like it's my attainment, so to speak. So there's a number of different defilements of insight that can arise, and you can think you're enlightened already. And most meditators will have that. If they have a really good meditation, very peaceful for a long time, maybe all day you feel peaceful, totally peaceful, very deep sense of peace. Whatever anyone says or does doesn't bother you. All the anger's gone, the worries are gone, not bothered about anything. You know, truly chilled. And you walk around, maybe a little bit of a smile on your face, and your friends looking, and they go, "Oh, good meditation today." But the one who's experiencing this may actually think they're enlightened. I've met quite a few monks who've had that experience. Usually it's temporary, quite quickly sorted out. Either a teacher helps them to see maybe you're not as enlightened as you think, or they come to their own realization. They think, it was a state of samadhi, but it's not enlightenment. Because enlightenment means complete removal of all attachment, all craving, all greed, anger, delusion. All kilesas are gone. Samadhi is suppressing them, but it's not removing them yet. Wisdom has to do that, insight. But of course, if you're walking around thinking you're enlightened, you stop looking. You stop practicing, basically. I'm enlightened. And who can prove you wrong? And people do it all the time, don't they? They tell everyone else. And that's often a clue, isn't it? When someone starts walking around the monastery going, I'm enlightened, you can probably say, no, you're not. But the other problem is if it's a delusion, they completely believe it, so no one can convince them other than a really smart teacher like the Buddha, or maybe Ajahn Chah, or someone like that, or themselves waking up to it. Very hard to budge this kind of defilement of insight. So sometimes talk about occasion like there was one nun who thought she was enlightened, went to Ajahn Chah, said, I'm a Sotapanna. And Ajahn Chah said, good for you, you're a little bit better off than a dog. And she went, what? Not happy with the answer. Went away, and because she was grumpy, it was like, enlightened people don't get grumpy. Or there was a monk, what teachers tend to do is try and point out where you've got a defilement lurking that you haven't seen, because you're thinking you're enlightened. So they try to poke you or trigger you or press your button to get some fear, or some worry, or some anger, or some greed, or some lust, or something. They try and test you out. There was one monk I knew, he was a very young monk, and unfortunately he was a bit inexperienced, and he had some peaceful meditation. And then one night at tea time, it's tea time, I'm enlightened. And everyone went, So having a cup of tea, I'm enlightened. Oh, wasn't expecting that. And everyone just said, okay, let's just take it one day at a time, let's see, okay. And off he went. He was staying in the deep forest under a mosquito net out in the open, meditating a lot, probably too much. He's getting a little bit too caught up in his thoughts and his views. And he went back having declared he was enlightened, and he said that night all he had was dreams and images of naked women coming all the time. And he said he was overwhelmed by sexual desire, and he came down in the morning all pale and crestfallen. He said, no, I'm not enlightened. It happens sometimes in a very extreme way. Or sometimes it can be amusing. So there was a monk we used to go and see called Lumpur Kasem, who lived on top of a mountain in Lopburi province called Khao Sanam Cheng. And it's a little pointy-shaped mountain that looks like a cherry. And they have no road up this mountain. You have to climb up many stairs to get to the top. But he built a monastery on top, a very amazing thing. And he lived there just with a few monks. Very quiet, peaceful place with a great view of the countryside. You go and visit him, it's like classic. He's really sort of skinny, and he had arupa jhanas. He had the 8 jhanas and the psychic powers. It was really good. So you go up like on a pilgrimage to see him. The first time I went to see him, he looked at me and just said, "You're English, aren't you?" I said, "Oh, Luang Por, how do you know?" In English, you only need 2 words, food and drink. He said that in English. I said, "Yep, correct, Luang Por, food and drink, that's correct." And he would, because he had great samadhi, great psychic powers, he's a very good teacher. And he could see sometimes where monks were going wrong in their practice. And one monk thought he was enlightened. So the monk went up to see him, bowed, sat there, and Luang Por had a copy of the Tripitaka, the Buddhist text, a big fat book, just sitting there. So he bashed the monk on the head. Boom! Here comes the self-proclaimed arant, meaning someone who thinks they're an arahant when they're not. So he tapped him on the head with the Tripitaka and put it down, and the monk quickly, feeling embarrassed, bowed and went away. So sometimes a teacher can help, or they sort of find a way to poke the person to come out of their delusion. But not easy. So that's Sanya Vipalasa. Papancha means proliferation, endless thinking based on craving, views and conceit, which is what we call the sense of self. Self-view, conceit, and craving, wanting. These are the sort of 3 main things which make you not peaceful when you meditate. We call it papancha, just endless proliferation going out all over the place. The monkey mind, endless monkey mind. The Buddha broke it down into these 3 roots. Ditthi, attachment to views. I'm right, I'm wrong, you're right, you're wrong, I like this, I believe in that, believe in that. Attachment to conceit, self-view of conceit, like, I am better than you, I'm the same as you, I'm worse than you. These are the 3 main kinds of conceit. Comparing with others all the time. And then craving, wanting or not wanting, wanting something or wanting to get rid of something. This is firing up our mind all the time, endless thinking. When you establish mindfulness, maybe you can start to cut some of it off, let it go, and that's why you can become more peaceful. So you have to practice mindfulness. Mindfulness with precepts and right effort and some understanding as well, some wisdom. This can all go to help cut off papancha. And if you don't, your mind is just constantly thinking. Like the worst kind of papancha is stress, isn't it? Endlessly thinking, and you often make it worse because you've got a problem, problem at work, or a money problem, or a health problem, or a relationship problem, all the problems of life. And you lie there at night thinking, I've got to do this, I've got to do that, then I've got to do this, then I've got to do that. Your mind whirs and whirs and whirs, and you can't sleep. You try and analyze it or think it to solve it, but actually the thinking makes you more tired, more strung out, and worse. Stress, that's stress, isn't it? The better thing to do is actually put it all aside, put it down, go back to the breath or some meditation technique that brings up mindfulness. Get a rest from all the thinking, and then go back and look at your problem later, and you might see it's not that much at all. All that thinking was probably a waste of time, and yet we love to do it. Think, 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 think. Another question. Dear Luang Por, I have had meditation experience when the mind seems to be falling into a certain state, like it's getting sucked into a certain space. It's impermanent though. When I stay with my breath, this feeling comes and goes. What could this be? It sounds like your mind and body are settling down through the meditation, and periodically your mind is probably going more into its object. So if you're using the breath, mind and the breath are sort of merging for periods of time, and you're sort of letting go of your body, so your body feels very light, You're letting go of your normal thinking of all kinds of things. So your mind and the breath are coming together for a period of time, and then it will come back and start thinking again, getting caught up into different emotions, thoughts, distracted. So it sounds like the beginning of samadhi. Mind gathers together and then it comes back again, as it were. So just keep going. Sounds good. Sounds like you're practicing, and you just need to keep doing it. You'll get better. As you said, it's impermanent, so you also have to get used to the frustration of just getting peaceful, and then you stop being peaceful, start thinking of all kinds of things. So just be very patient with that. Well, small writing. Hi Ajahn. Hi. Today while I was meditating, ants are biting my legs, and I kept focusing on my meditation, and I think I got a hint of how to keep my mind calm in peace while I cannot have control over my body and the pain. And I thought of your teaching to be patient, and it helps ease my mind. Thank you all for having us for the retreat. May you all be peaceful in the coming year. So this is more of a statement that the meditation helped to deal with the ants. I would say in the history of meditators, ants probably are the biggest animal obstacle. I've met a few animals in my time, from elephants down through bears and tigers and kangaroos and snakes and wombats and porcupines and all kinds of things. But ants are probably the most annoying. Because there's lots of them, lots more than any other animal, and they come up, and sometimes they come in large numbers, and they do bite you when they get onto you, and they're attracted by your sweat or your warmth. And they seem to be everywhere. So yes, they can be very annoying, very challenging. But you've done the right thing, be patient with them. Be patient with them, spread metta to them. At least that will help you be more cool, more calm as you deal with them. Sometimes you have to get up and move. You don't have to just sit there and let them bite you. But it's true, if you go into deep samadhi, you won't notice the animals. Or you won't be moved by them, you won't be bothered by them. So I've had that many times, different kinds of animals, ants, mosquitoes or bigger things come along, but you're in the samadhi, so you're just not bothered by them, ignore them. But you are allowed to move if you need to. Question in Thai, so talk in Thai for a little bit and then translate. หลวงพ่อชาท่านสอนอะไรแบบไหนทำไมคนอุบลหรือลูกศิษย์ท่านที่วัดหนองบาพงถึงได้สงบเรียบร้อยและเคารพในสถานที่คือวัดมากทำไมเขาอดทนฝึกนั่งสมาธิกันจริงจังมากหลวงพ่อเอามาสอนพวกเราที่เมลเบิร์นบ้าง วัดพุทธโพธิวันได้ไหมครับได้แต่เราไม่ใช่หลวงพ่อชานะ หลวงพ่อชาปัญญามากกว่าเราความอดทนสูงกว่าเราอาจารย์ก็สอนมา24 ปีแล้วได้ผลแค่นี้ บางคนได้บางคนเข้าใจบางคนไม่เข้าใจก็มีแต่เราก็ต้องพยายามไปเรื่อยๆเนาะเหมือนอาจารย์ใช่ไหมอาจารย์ก็เล่าบ่อยๆนั่งสมาธิปีแรกก็นั่ง3 นาทีต้องขยับต้องลุกต้องไปต้องขยับขาเจ็บมากไม่สงบใจก็ไม่สงบร่างกายก็เจ็บขยับไปขยับมาดูไม่งามเลย แต่ต้องฝึกหลวงพ่อชาสอนให้อดทนเราก็เลยต้องอดทนต้องตั้งใจค่อยๆเพิ่มความเพียรความพยายามทีละนิดทีละนิดฝึกให้ปล่อยวางปีแรกแค่คันนิดเดียวคันก็ต้องหยุดอะไรกาวอะไรบางทีนึกว่าหมดมากัดแต่มันไม่ใช่หมดมันแค่ความรู้สึกคันเฉยๆโอ้น่าเบื่อมากร่างกายนี้ต้องขยับต้องกาวต้องอะไรเราก็ต้องกัดฟันอดทนทำไปเรื่อยๆแต่ว่าทำไปทำมาก็อยู่ได้นั่งได้ความรบกวนของเวทนาทางกายมันก็น้อยลงความตั้งใจทำให้ไม่ค่อยสนใจไม่ค่อยคิดมากเรื่องเวทนาทางกายค่อยๆฝึกแล้วเหลือทางใจความคิดความปรุงแต่งที่เราเรียกพพัญชะคือความปรุงแต่งค่อยๆแก้ไขบางครั้งชนะได้สติแล้วก็ชนะบางครั้งก็แพ้แต่ก็ฝึกไปเรื่อยๆหลวงพ่อชาช่วยเพราะหลวงพ่อชาทุกคนเชื่อว่าท่านเป็นผู้รู้จริงๆเป็นพระปฏิบัติดีปฏิบัติชอบพระอรหันต์คนที่ศรัทธาหลวงพ่อชาก็มั่นใจว่าท่านเป็นพระปฏิบัติดีท่านก็มีปัญญาดีสอนดีท่านมีความสงบท่านมีความอดทนสูงมากทั้งพระทั้งโยมก็จะตามท่านยอมที่จะตามท่านและท่านไม่ได้ดีแต่พูดท่านก็ทำด้วยนั่งสมาธิทั้งคืนท่านจะนั่งทั้งคืนได้เดินจงกรมกวาดลานวัดทำกิจวัตรของวัดสวดมนต์นั่งสมาธิทุกอย่างท่านก็ทำท่านไม่ขี้เกียจท่านขยันและท่านก็จิตใจสูงจิตใจดีบางทีพระลูกศิษย์ดื้อมาเถียงกับท่านโมโหกับท่านแต่ท่านเย็นพระผู้ใหญ่บางที่อิจฉาท่านเกลียดท่านเพราะท่านมีลูกศิษย์ลูกหามากพระผู้ใหญ่อาจจะเกลียดหรืออิจฉาท่านไม่ถือท่านยังกราบไหว้ยังเคารพท่านต้องดูหลายๆอย่างสู้กับหลายๆอย่างบางที่ชาวบ้านชอบท่านบางที่ชาวบ้านไม่ชอบท่านแอนตี้ประท้วงด่าท่านกวนท่านก็มีนะแต่ท่านใจเย็นแล้วก็ใช้ปัญญาค่อยๆสอนอยู่ไปอยู่มาทุกคนที่อยู่กับท่านก็มั่นใจว่าท่านเป็นพระปฏิบัติดีก็เลยมีกำลังใจอาจารย์อยู่กับท่านช่วงแรก5-6 ปีแรกที่บวชมั่นใจว่าจิตใจท่านสูงนั่งสมาธิกับท่านโอ้สงบเร็วเพราะมีความตั้งใจดีนะหลวงพ่อเย็นบรรยากาศรอบท่านก็เย็นดีเราก็เลยตั้งใจทำบางที่อยู่กับหลวงพ่อชาสมัยแรกเราบวชไม่นอนเลยทั้งวันทั้งคืน24 ชั่วโมงไม่นอนเพราะมีกำลังใจที่จะฝึกหลวงพ่อเลี่ยมจะนอนน้อยมากท่านก็เป็นองค์ที่ดูแลหลวงพ่อชาแล้วก็ดูแลวัดช่วงที่หลวงพ่อชาป่วยอาจารย์ถามท่านหลวงพ่อทำยังไงนอนน้อยมากท่านบอกขอใน24 ชั่วโมงขอชั่วโมงเดียวพักผ่อนถ้าได้ชั่วโมงเดียวก็ไปได้ท่านก็ดูแลหลวงพ่อชาดีมากสร้างกุฏิให้แล้วก็ดูแลทุกอย่างการเพศด้วยพาไปโรงพยาบาลอุปกรณ์ทุกอย่างทำเพื่อตอบแทนบุญคุณของครูบาอาจารย์สอนพระเนนดูแลพระเนนคือหลวงพ่อชาจะดึงความเสียสละดึงศรัทธาออกจากญาติโยมพระเนนเขาก็เลยได้ผลในการปฏิบัติก็เลยทำต่อไปเรื่อยๆครูบาอาจารย์หลายองค์ที่มาที่นี่ที่เรานิมนต์มาเลยก็ท่านจะเทศสอนท่านจะบอกท่านตั้งใจบวชแค่พรรษาเดียวแต่ไปอยู่กับหลวงพ่อชาแล้วเกิดศรัทธาแล้วก็บวชตลอดชีวิตได้จะเป็นอย่างนั้นทั้งพระฝรั่งพระไทยญาติโยมเมชีทุกคนเกิดศรัทธาที่อยู่กับหลวงพ่อชาก็เลยเป็นอย่างนั้น just talking about Ajahn Chah. The question was, how come was so good at teaching people, and he taught the people in the area where his monastery was, and he taught them to meditate, to be respectful of the monastery, to be respectful of the way of practice, with great results. You know, people really, you can really see it when you go to his monastery. Even today, you go there, people behave very well. They're very respectful. They go into the hall, they bow. In the monastery, they're very quiet, very kind of humble, very respectful. You see it even today, many years after he died. And that's in both the Sangha, monks, nuns, and the laity. And when I first went there, that's what I noticed. You know, people, they're really practicing. The people they had families, they have jobs, but they come into the monastery and they really respected Ajahn Chah, but also the practice. They would put effort into the practice. And so they learned many things, and that kept them in the robes in the case of monks and nuns, because he taught them to be very patient with the difficulties, the mind that's full of doubt, worries, greed, anger, delusion, missing things, wanting things, reacting to things. He taught people to be patient and then reflect, to let go. So this term, letting go, I mean, Luang Por Chah didn't coin it or own that phrase, but he came to be known as the teacher who teaches letting go. And he's very good at getting people to let go of their own attachments and to see how they need to let go rather than blaming the world for their suffering. To see really they just need to let go of their own attachments, then they'll be happier. So any of you who've read sort of some of the teachings of Ajahn Chah or his disciples, his students, you'll get this flavour of letting go. So like say Ajahn Sumedho, Luang Por Sumedho, when he's first at Ajahn Chah's monastery, he was finding it difficult. He didn't speak the language very well, the food wasn't very good, it was hot, dusty, difficult. But he was putting up with it. Luang Por Chah said, be patient, and he could see Luang Por Chah was teaching that. He said there was one day sweeping the monastery grounds with the other monks, and you often, in those days, you'd sweep for an hour or two. It's hot, dusty, you sweep these leaves, and you have a broom which is homemade. And if you haven't learnt to make your broom very well, your broom starts to fall apart immediately. So he said he was scratching the ground with his hopeless broom, going along, and he's grumbling. He said, I came here to get enlightened, to meditate, and here I am scratching the ground with this poor broom, poor quality broom. I didn't come here for this. And he's sort of mumbling and moaning in his mind, like we do, if we're honest. We all groan and mumble and complain in our mind. And Ajahn Chah just popped up out of nowhere. And Ajahn Chah walked up to him and said, is Wat Nong Bapong monastery suffering? And then he walked off. Simple question. And Ajahn Chah got the question, and he was thinking, Ajahn Sumedho got the question, and then he was thinking, is the monastery the suffering, or is the suffering in my mind? And he said he had, a really good insight. Oh yeah, it's me. I'm making this suffering with all my complaining and my strong views and opinions, how things should be. It should be different, it should be better. That's all me, that's all internal, it's not the monastery. And he's used that reflection ever since. Just one reflection, but it was a very valuable one that had a lot of value in the entire monk's life for Luang Por Sumedho. Many other monks have had some similar things where they've realised the suffering we experience is internal. We suffer from our own attachment, our views and opinions, our likes, our dislikes, what we want, what we don't want. It's all internal, isn't it? But we get it wrong. We always say it's because of this person or this place, my family member or my job or this or that or the government or the world. We're always blaming something out there, not taking responsibility for our own thoughts. But our real suffering is in here. This is what Ajahn Chah taught. And people got that, so then they're very grateful to him. They wanted to follow him practice because they realised he was a good teacher. Oh dear, I don't think we're going to get through all these questions. Dear Ajahn, I would like to practice and chant in daily life. What are those chants? And where can I have a copy of the chanting script? Easy, you go to our website, and there are 2 PDF volumes on our website, these books in PDF form that you can print or save onto your phone or read on the website. Volume 1, Volume 2, everything is there. It's really easy. I don't know why people ask these questions. They've obviously never been to our website. We also link them on our Facebook. So there's a lot of, these days it's very easy to get this stuff. Don't take these ones with you, otherwise we'll have none left. So many people take them as souvenirs, we've run out. So please don't. And as far as meditation goes, just make your plan. How many minutes a day? I would say minimum 10 minutes a day. New Year resolution, I'm going to sit meditation 10 minutes a day or 30 minutes a day, whatever you can do, and stick to it. Easy. Luang, during meditation, while concentrating on the breathing, it gets boring. And I feel the urge to think of other things. How should I stop myself from letting my mind free? Well, all these other things that seem more interesting, why? What's the attraction? It'll be, thinking about something you've done before, remembering, be thinking about something you want to do and imagining and creating how good it's going to be, and you feel good about that or fills the time. Why don't you try that with the breath? How good can the breath get? Have you ever even imagined that? What it's like to be in samadhi, have you ever even imagined that? You're not giving the breath a chance. You go, breathe in, breathe out, 2 seconds, boring, finish. You're not giving it enough chance. It's like going on a date and having 2 words and say boring and off you go. You don't get to know the person, there's no way you're going to stay with them. Food, you've got to eat the food in order to know what it tastes like, what it feels like once you've eaten. Everything is like this, you've got to give the breath a chance. You've got to stick with it a bit. Be patient, get to know your breath. Of course it seems boring because you're just with it a little bit and then you think of all these other things. So the breath doesn't yet grab you because you haven't had a good time together. You've got to start relaxing, getting into the breathing. And you'll notice, when you're peaceful, the breath becomes more relaxed, more refined, quite pleasant. It can become enjoyable to be with the breathing, partly because all these annoying other things disappear. When you're with the breath and you're peaceful, you're mindful, and certainly if some samadhi arises, those things that you would normally think are interesting, that you want to think about, become boring. Can't be bothered. Just imagining that, imagining this, thinking of that. They're the things that become boring. The breath becomes interesting because you see it as a vehicle, a way to become more mindful, more peaceful, and then to know things. And the breath can take you all the way to Nibbana, can bring you a peaceful mind, a happy mind, but you've got to give it a chance. And I think that's the main problem. People try a little bit and then they're finished. Can't be bothered. If we're honest, how many seconds or minutes have you been with the breath today? It's probably just a few moments, and the rest of the time is thinking about all this other stuff. You can do it another way. Okay, all this other stuff that seems more interesting, where is it now? It's just tricking you. It's like some magician's trick. It's not real, is it? It's just, if I think about this, blah, 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 blah. It's gone, isn't it? Now it's gone. It wasn't that important. It wasn't that good. It was just at the time you thought it would be good. You're tricking yourself, believing your thoughts, your desires, they trick you. Don't let it trick you. Bring up some wisdom to help you stay with the breath more, come back to the breath. Question what's going on in your mind. You have to inquire or investigate. Oh, why do I keep thinking about this thing, whatever it is, the future? Well, every thought you have about the future is going to be inaccurate. Who can predict the future? You don't really know. But we build all these ideas, oh, it's going to be like this and then like that. Well, that's all just storytelling. Or even the past, often we're recreating the past and changing it. The bits that weren't very good, we often change, don't we? We hide our mistakes and things that went wrong, and then we bring up some good stuff and try and convince ourselves we did better than we really did. Anyway, it's just the past. When you think about the past, you can change it, you can write it differently, make a story. Some of that thinking is accurate, some is not. But that's the past. What about the present? We're not in the present at all, are we? With your breath, or in the present moment, 1 second, 2 seconds, and then gone. Monkey mind. Just stay still, stay put for a while in the present moment. The breath is simply a way to be with the present moment. Just relax, be with the breath, let go of all this other stuff. Then you'll find the breath becomes enjoyable. Probably where you'll find it most impressive is, say you are stressed, you're angry, you're afraid, you're worried, you're fed up, you could even be bored. And then you go to the breath, and that boredom or the fear or the worry or the anger starts to fade away. You go, oh, this breath is really powerful, it's really good, it can help me let go of something that was really bothering me. Especially things like fear, when you're nervous and you go to the breath to calm down, oh, this is good. Or you're very sad, you go to the breath, you come up again, you feel more calm, better. Or you're angry and it helps you to calm down. Once you've used the breath a few times to let go of some suffering, then you'll have more faith in it. You'll try it and you'll try it more, you use it more. I know so many stories, I've probably told them all to you about people who have used the breath to get rid of, end some suffering, even to the point of things like people who are suicidal. And then someone else says, look, just sit down now and watch the breath. Go to your breathing, and they calm down and they can let go of the thought to commit suicide. It's that powerful. But probably, on a more daily basis, it's not going to be like that, but it's just other things that are bothering you. A little bit of irritation, pain in your knee or some part of your body. Somebody has annoyed you at work, you come home and you're thinking, why did they say that? And you're kind of angry. Just do a bit of breathing meditation, 5 minutes. Breathe in, breathe out. Relax. Oh, it doesn't matter some more, does it? You let it go. If you give it a chance, the breath can really help you solve all kinds of suffering. Big suffering, little suffering, every kind of suffering. And it's free. Oh dear, more questions. Well, maybe the last one, we're kind of going on a long time here. Ajahn, is it possible, it's not possible because I can't read your writing, is it possible to also do death contemplation while doing walking meditation? Yes, it definitely is. Or will it run the risk of increased distraction and falling over? Could. Any meditation object, or most meditation objects, you can do while walking meditation. So in the case of death contemplation, how do you do it? Most people begin death contemplation by just thinking about death. What does death mean to me? If I was to die today, what does that mean? It means tomorrow doesn't come. All this business and worry and stuff about the future won't happen. I won't see people again. I won't do the things that I do normally again. Finish. All this stuff in my mind, finish. So it's that finality and that ending of a lot of stuff, attachments, cravings, desires, suffering, ends when you bring up the thought of death. That's why the Buddha said bring it up. It's a useful way to think. And it's not a lie, is it? We're all going to die. We just don't know when. So it's bringing your mind to see the truth. I don't know when I'll die. It could be today, or it could be in 10 years or 20 years, I don't know. But it could be today. You bring it up. So you just think about it first. But then you maybe just have one word to recite to help you bring up the thought of death. So it could be death. Or in Pali, maranang. Or maranang me niyatang, death is certain. Maranang bhavisati, you're mindful of death. There'll be something that a word in English or your own language or Pali, and you bring the word out and you keep saying it over and over again, just to bring your mind to that and cut through all this planning and scheming and imagination and storytelling and all this stuff. You just cut through that, brings you right to the present moment. So you can do that when you're walking. You know. Maybe you say, I will die, or life is uncertain, or death is certain as you walk. Death is certain, until you drop everything else. Your mind gathers around this one word or one phrase, and you become peaceful as you're walking. If you're peaceful to upajjhara samadhi, you can still walk, but you're in samadhi and the hindrances have gone, you're peaceful. And you'll probably find you can walk a long time because you're peaceful. Maybe you don't want to stop. You can keep going as long as you have some strength. You can go for an hour, 2 hours, 3 hours, because you're peaceful. That's many monks I know have walked for many hours in a day or a night even, because they're peaceful. You don't get bothered by the tiredness. You don't need anything else. You just walk. For all you, the ones who are wondering about whether women can become enlightened, Meiji Gyal, who we believe is an arant, she used to walk meditation in the middle of the night. Even when it was raining, she would hold an umbrella and keep walking. You know, we're all kind of, 5 minutes of rain, no, that's it, quit, finish. She wanted to get enlightened. You see, that's the difference. We probably don't yet want to get enlightened. She wanted to get enlightened, so she walked with an umbrella. She's very determined. So you need determination, and then you walk. When she first meditated, she had a vision of herself as a corpse. It's a form of death meditation, and also seeing the unattractiveness of the body. This body will become old, sick, and die. So she would see that all the time, and there's a very strong insight. So you've got to start somewhere. So maybe as you're walking, you do this. If you become really peaceful and enter samadhi, well, yeah, you may have to stand still, stop moving, close your eyes, and your mind goes in for a while. But if it's a moderate level of samadhi, you can still keep walking. Similarly, what about doing contemplation on the unattractiveness of the body during walking meditation? Oh, well, there you go. I've just been answering that. You can do that as well. You can imagine yourself as a corpse. You may be walking, but you could imagine you're a corpse lying there on the side of the walking path. Say a tree fell on you, or a bolt of lightning hit you, or you had a heart attack, whatever, and you'd be there lying as a corpse. What would you look like? No one's there, you're in the forest, say, all alone. No one's there to help you. You'd just be a corpse lying there. And first you just look like you're asleep. Then gradually you change, don't you? What changes happen when you become a corpse? Well, your skin changes colour, you stop breathing, obviously you go cold. Skin changes colour, and then you start to bloat. And things happen, like your hair drops out, skin goes sort of wrinkly and get all kinds of veins on it, and then it starts to break, it goes moist, and eventually you get worms. Because the flies come and they lay their eggs, you get worms, smelly, weeping corpse. And then all that disappears, it starts to dry out, and you just see the bones with some flesh, and then they gradually get pulled away by animals, or they just dry out and they start crumbling, mixing with the earth, and in the end you just got the earth. Here we get kangaroos and deer die sometimes, and you can see that process, just as I've described. Or you can maybe see it on the internet, or you just use your imagination, how the human body breaks down, decomposition. So obviously it's not a nice thing to do, you have to be very peaceful to do that. But it's teaching you the truth. And when you see a corpse, if you ever go to an autopsy, or you have a relative who dies, maybe you look at them in the coffin, you'll see, it's different, isn't it? When you see a corpse, it's cold, doesn't move, it's just kind of become elements. The personality is gone, because mind and body separate. So you do this meditation, you're seeing it in yourself. This is what I will look like, this will happen to me. This body is only so good because it gets old, gets sick and dies. It's not to scare you, it's not to make you depressed or scare you, it's simply to be aware this is what happens, it's the truth. And what did the Buddha do? Well, sometimes there will be certain women in the time of the Buddha really maybe very beautiful, so they're very attached to their beauty. Okay. Buddha wanted to help them. So there's one who was very attached to her beauty and very conceited. Oh, I am beautiful, more beautiful than anyone else. Okay. So goes to see the Buddha. What does the Buddha do? He creates an image of a woman even more beautiful. So she's like, huh? How come this even more beautiful woman is serving the Buddha? She was like sitting there serving the Buddha. Oh, that's not right. What's she doing there? How come she got that position so close to the Buddha? And then he makes this beautiful woman who's next to him get older and older and older before the eyes of the person looking. Get older, and the skin goes shriveled, and the back goes bent, and the teeth fall out, and the hair goes grey. She becomes older and older, and then she dies. As a kind of nimitta, an image before the eyes of this young, beautiful woman who's very proud of her beauty. And this gave her a real insight. This body one day it's going to be like that. It's going to get old. It helped her to see that. So that's what the Buddha did. So maybe we have to do that for ourselves, and use our imagination at first, but then calm the mind and investigate this body. This body will not get any younger, it'll only get older, get sick and die. So, still a few questions left, or quite a few. I have to leave it, I think.